You're so overwhelmed. People don't know what they're doing during their divorce process. And so they're just trying to get through the legal process, but those all have implications on one another. So how I like to explain to my clients is like a jigsaw puzzle. I understand not everyone loves a jigsaw puzzle, but running with the analogy, if you poured out all the pieces to a jigsaw puzzle to put it together, you don't just try and shove all the pieces together. Like that's just not efficient. You're not going to get anywhere trying to do everything at once. You have to flip over the pieces, see what there is, and then connect each piece at a time. But the biggest mistake that I see people make is you would never put a jigsaw puzzle together and then walk away and not make sure it matches the front of the box. Like that was a lot of time and effort to make sure it actually worked. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of people do. They check all the boxes. Oh, I'm going to do this with my house, this with parenting, this with support, but they don't actually step back to see if it makes sense together. And that can have a really negative impact because just as an example with a house alone, parenting time, all parents agree to parenting time, but then they don't have the capacity, they don't have the space to actually have parenting time with their kids. So how do we handle that? Or a house sale or keeping a home. Maybe it's agreed that one spouse is going to keep the home, but they can't afford it without having support agreements. They get support agreements and they're like, okay, well, now I can afford it. We don't know if that's actually true. There needs to be an actual analysis run on different loan options. We need to see what you can actually afford. And so unfortunately, I get a lot of calls a year down the line from people that I didn't work with who say, my agreements don't work. Can we fix them now? And it's like, we really can't. So it's really helpful to start talking about these things up front. Like if I have a client who says, I think that I want to sell my house, I immediately send them to Asher and we're at square one. Like we haven't even done anything yet because, or I think I'm going to rent, or I want to see what it looks like to, keep my house and the other person moves out. We need to know what those things look like up front so that people can make knowledgeable decisions. Otherwise, you're making decisions not knowing what you're actually making a decision based on, or if it's actually going to work long term.
And you need enough time to digest, and they need enough time to analyze the assessment. Because if it's not just a one conversation thing most of the time when it's a big asset like a home, and they need just that time, that time. I love the jigsaw concept. I love it because I sometimes use that as well in regards to the process, right? And it could feel overwhelming when you open up. And it's just so funny that you also use jigsaws because like just a puzzle, right? Because like here's the puzzle, we're dumping it out on the table and it feels overwhelming.
Yep.
And I love how you're like, well, first flip them right side up, right?
Yeah.
Pieces. I usually just start with we always start with the border and we know, okay, here is the frame work that we have. And then once we start putting it together, then we actually can start seeing what this is all about. And that's that is the process. The first time I come over someone's home, it's like I'm just dumping out a puzzle on the table and it could feel overwhelming. But my goal is always before I leave that at least the border is set up and we have a pretty good framework in regards to how we're going to work together, what the process is like. So there's more comfort for them to move forward and to help them make their decision. Because I'm a big believer in holding the real estate if you can.